What do you make of this collection of pitchers that you have here and what that group can accomplish? 'Cause I know there's been some talk about potentially adding, but this group of guys here, what can you accomplish with them?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we'll always talk about the guys that we have, and I'm excited about that group. I mean, clearly led by, Darvish and Musgrove at the top, and some guys coming back out of the bullpen, and some guys we've acquired, King and Brito and Vasquez, and of course Thorpe has been impressive in his start to our exposure to him, and so excited about that, and the guys coming up as well. So it's a range of experiences, and we're excited about it.
Will you guys narrow it down more or sooner in terms of who will be pitching at the start, given that you're starting a week early?
Yeah, I mean, we've Ruben's done a nice job. We've talked to him about it. He's partnered with our players about getting them ready. Yeah, it's a shorter spring, 21 games and 26 full days of camp. So, yeah, we're going to be really intentional. We probably be some backfield work taking place to build guys up as well. Make sure we're getting the innings, but Ruben's communicate with our guys about starting and how they're getting built up, and of course the plan for the relievers about when do we want to think about them going, probably not in spring training games back to back, but like a pitching a game, bullpen the next day, clearly towards the end of spring training.
So it is a little bit different.
It's different, yeah, but we winners find solutions.
What's it like having Joe Musgrove as a resource as you get settled in as a new manager?
I can't speak highly enough about our leadership. Specific to your question, Dennis, about Joe. I mean, you're talking about just a pro's pro. Has taken the lead in the offseason again with, spearheading some of the pitching and getting to know, especially the guys coming over from New York and some of the younger pitchers, getting to know them, making them feel comfortable. Also, making clear what our standards are. And, you can talk about the standards, which we do. But when you have somebody that models the standards like Joe, it makes your life a whole lot easier for everybody, our pitchers, and including myself.
A little bit earlier, Joe had talked about this team maybe trying to identify its identity from the get-go of spring training. I know it's early, February, but what do you hope this team's identity is from the get-go?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we're going to be together. I mean, it starts there. And together means going to the same goal and bringing everybody with us on what that looks like, and making sure people understand where we're going and what it takes to get there. And that's a process as well. But ultimately do it together, making sure that we're like-minded in where we want to go, but also be willing to share and collaborate, but also, challenge what that looks like, knowing that it's not personal and we're going and pulling off the same proverbial rope. So that's part of our identity. Start there, because if you're not together, then it's hard to be efficient moving forward. And also we want to use our experiences collectively to grow each other. So that's part of the identity as well. And then it gets to be about just good, solid, fundamental baseball. About executing in every area and every phase of the game.
Mike, what do you think the biggest lesson this team learned from a year ago?
Oh, Bob, that's a great question. I can tell you this. We have I mentioned about our experienced players, more of our experienced core. With Manny, Bogey, Toddy, Crony. But we talked about Joe and Darvish. I can tell you that group wasn't pleased with, in their terms, the underperformance of what took place and how it went down. So without getting into creative specifics, I can tell you that the group that's going to help lead this 24 campaign is coming in hungry.
What do you see the heating process on the Darvish? What do you see the heating process on Darvish?
Oh, the Darvish, he's full go. He's had a good off season. I feel like no question that he's in a really good place physically. He's been able to throw his bullpens. He's going to throw lives coming up. His recovery's been good. The ball's coming out really well. He feels really excited about where he's at and where he's going, and again, the recovery speaks to that as well. So he's in a really good place.
Sometimes we don't see guys like Joe or you in games right away. Maybe when might we see them sooner?
I would expect to see those guys a little bit sooner, just relative to our starting time being a little sooner. We week ahead of basically everybody else except LA. So, I would expect to see them in a game at some point sooner. Now, some guys have their personal preference and have earned that, whether it's in a spring training game or whether it's in a backfield B game. But that'll take place, and they've been ramped up with that nice balancing act between getting them ramped up too early and factoring in that we expect to play a long season. But yeah, they'll both be in games sooner than they would typically be with the appropriate amount of volume.
What are the logistics of preparing for 2 games across the world that are going to count, but they're just kind of segmented there as 2 games with spring training before and then a week after? Like, what is the kind of some of the details that go into prepping a pitching staff and pitchers for that?
There's a lot of logistics going into this, and I can applaud, because you look at it, there's a lot of tentacles to these logistics. Obviously travel, the compactness of spring. So now you look up into more of a traditional spring. You have, between 31, 33 days. There hadn't been a more traditional spring in the last 4 or 5 years, so now I don't even know what that is anymore, between lockouts and COVID and World Baseball Classics, and in our case now going to Korea, and just normalize and become an elite adjuster, what that looks like. But, more typically it's like a 30 to 33 day full camp with more like closer to 25 to 27 games. And now you're looking at 21 games and, again, 26 full days. So it's about efficiency ultimately. I am also encouraged by the fact that our group has been able to be forward thinking about coming into camp in a certain place, in a certain shape, again, without not rushing it and looking at the bigger picture of what this looks like, because clearly we want to be ready for the 2 games in Korea. But I don't want to overly have that dictate the fact we will be ready, so I want to make sure I'm clear about that. But also appreciate the fact that, we have a week after that before the season starts at home, in the States. So there's just a lot of logistics. Our efficiency and our timing and our communication internally with our staff and with our players is really important.
What do you expect, Yuki, Machi?
Yes.
And what was the first impression of him?
Yeah, no, we're really excited about Yuki. He's clearly got experience. He's adapting exceptionally well. He's really quite the talent, looking at how he's throwing his sides, and everybody's been really encouraged by just his stuff and his pitch ability and his feel. But also his acclimation's been, I feel like, it's been completely accelerated. We've been intentional about, and we'll continue always be intentional about, you talk about identity and culture. We have a culture within our culture, because we have so many different cultures that we want to continue to be mindful of, between obviously, the Japanese culture and then Korean culture and of course Latin culture, and so we just make sure that he feels comfortable, but his acclimation and his acceleration in the States has been very impressive.
Is Go included among the closer candidates?
Listen, he's going to get an opportunity. It's hard to evaluate that because we haven't seen him outside of video or game tape. But, listen, we're going to go into spring training as a competition, and I can't rule it out, but it's hard to really give a detailed answer without really seeing him compete.
Any expectations of him?
Yeah, I expect him to come in. Again, we want to acclimate him, but like all of our guys, come in, throw strikes, compete, and be able to do all the little things that it takes to win games, field your position, hold runners. But this guy, similar to Matsui, he's got high leverage experience, and that's hard to mimic. So we're excited about that, and we expect him to go out and compete.
We just got word of the jersey patches for Peter and the fact that the Memorial will be before the season. What do you kind of make of the way all that builds into the season? Obviously something that kind of he built with this team.
Yeah, clearly, obviously, it's something that's very important to honor the legacy of Peter Seiler, and not only honor it that day, but also continue to have it in the forefront of what we are about as an organization, and how we represent this organization, and continue to think about and know it's at the forefront of, we want to make sure that we honor what was ultimately his wishes, that at some point, sooner rather than later, we're going to, as he would say, the baseball guys will smile down on us, and we'll have a parade in San Diego to celebrate a world championship. So, clearly it's a great man with that deservingly be honored, but it won't stop there. That particular day, just be a day to commemorate, celebrate him, and then we'll always have him in our hearts.
Because you guys start the season so early, how big of a challenge is it that you're probably going to have some guys in your starting lineup that aren't even in camp or still free agents?
Yeah, no, I mean, talk about that, Bob. I mean, Peralta's a little bit late because of a visa, which is fine. It's part of the way it works, but he's going to get into camp a little bit later. So, it's going to be a more condensed camp for him. The good news about in Wandy's example is, it's a veteran guy that is getting his work in and getting taken care of there. So, just overall, it's just going to require us to, again, be intentional and make sure that we're getting ready mentally, physically, and emotionally to go over and compete in Korea.
Speaking of Peralta, you have several former Yankees here. Do you expect Higgy to catch most of them primarily, especially Michael King?
I wouldn't rule that out. The one thing that has already taken place, which I appreciate, is he's given us feedback, us meaning other catchers, Ruben, the pitching staff, just about what and how they operate and how they compete and how they use their pitches. But yeah, I think that makes some sense for Iggy to catch some of those guys, but also I think it's also important for Campy and other guys to catch him as well to create that familiarity. So it's a definite asset to have Higgy involved with those guys, and it's already paying off.
What do you particularly like about this time of year, spring training?
Oh man, just being on the baseball field, right? I mean, gosh, the fact that we get a chance, and I love the fact that our industry has created more off-season interest, and the proverbial hot stove is great, but the games are played in the field, and to get out and have these guys hard work and just get the group together is probably the biggest thing for me, is starting to get in the team building and getting the competition going again. But I mean, it's baseball. I don't. There's few things, if any, that I enjoy more than being out on the field with a group of guys competing.
Do you have any expectations for when Wandy might get here?
It's being fair for me to set that. I mean, it's going to be a couple days. I know a lot of heavy lifting's taking place to make it happen, but it'd be unreasonable to put a date on it.
And as far as the rest of the pitchers and catchers here are here, or is there any other?
Yeah, Patino's also having a little bit of a visa issue, so he's a little bit delayed, and Suarez is in transit. So, but otherwise, we should be full camp.
Any other health issues? When will Alec Jacob be full go? What your pitchers?
We feel like Alec's in pretty good spot. He's throwing his bullpens, and if he's behind, it's maybe a hair, but really he's in a good spot to compete and be able to get after it. So he's had a really good offseason, and I saw him throw live the other day, and it looked pretty darn good. So he's all reports ready.
Trade was discussed several times during the off season. So could you share your thoughts on that?
Well, I just saw him a minute ago. He looks great. He looks fantastic. So I was happy to see him. As far as the trade or anything like that goes, that's way out of my pay grade. So I defer to AJ on that. But I'm excited that he's here right now, and he's ready to have a good season for us.